Welcome to Her Legacy Podcast. Here we celebrate women in business doing more than just climbing that corporate ladder. This is about holding a space where we celebrate what it means to be a female entrepreneur. We share the good, the bad, the ugly of being in business for ourselves. Our vision is way bigger than just the fancy titles. It's about amplifying the vision each one of us has to leave our own dent in the world. And in doing so, we're inspiring other women to do the same. My name is Patty Dominguez, and welcome to Her Legacy Podcast for legacy leaders like you. Hey, my legacy leader. How are you? This is Patty here. We're talking about, does it make sense to look at your competition? But first, I wanted to give a big shout out for some reviews I got over on iTunes. I super appreciate it. And as I mentioned, I will give you a shout out. The first one is from Sally Kennedy, where she says, I love this podcast. They are short and to the point. Patty knows how to condense information into simple action steps. Thank you, Sally. Sally is a health professional. Dr. Julie DC says, Her Legacy Podcast and the host, Patty D, is so relevant for entrepreneurs and women. You will love her spirit, enthusiasm, and passion for helping you get to the next level. Looking forward to hearing more from this amazing woman. Well, thank you, Dr. Julie. I appreciate you immensely. And the Digestion Doc says, exceptional and inspiring. She says, I love Patty's energy. She's a marketing nerd and she speaks my language. I cannot wait to hear every episode because it's hard to find content that resonates. Patty's podcast hits the spot. I'm so thankful for this. Well, thank you, Dr. Christine. I super appreciate you. And thank you, all three of you, for leaving your reviews. I do not take it lightly. And I'm very, very inspired by just the love I'm feeling. I mean, this is what it is. So thank you so much for leaving those phenomenal reviews. I appreciate you all very greatly. Okay, so now on to the show where we're talking about, should we be looking at our competition? And my answer is yes. And here's why. Now, it may be a situation where like, I don't need to pay attention to my competition. I don't need to see what they're doing. But let me explain why. The reason is because things move so fast in this day and age, and things that may have worked before, how do you know that they're working the same? Is the message that you're sharing resonating with your ideal customer? So here's where having something unique about you is only verifiable that it's unique if you have a pulse on what's happening with the competition. And by that, I mean, just really recognizing who is in your competitive landscape. What are they talking about? How are they showing up? How are they making their claims and staking their flag in the ground and talking about what solution they provide specific to that perfect customer, which may be your perfect customer, right? So the deal is, I'm a part of a mastermind group, and we were having this conversation around how do you stand out uniquely. And in short, we were talking about competitive landscape, talking about the competition, and really getting a gauge if this is something that most people do. And what I have found is that most people do not. And they say, well, it's just, I don't really pay attention to the competition. And here's the thing, it's a disservice to not really have a handle on who is in your competitive set. Now, you may be in a super crowded market where there's a lot going on. You don't have to look at everybody, but you do have to look at who are the key players in that field, like people that you want to model. There was another comment that came through around, well, I don't want to copy. And you don't want to copy. You don't want to be a copycat or a me too, because quite frankly, the only position you're ever going to achieve there is second, because you can't be that one. So the purpose of this, though, is to really take a look outside of your immediate four walls. Who is doing what you're doing? What claims are they making? How are they proving their worth? And what is unique about what it is that they do? What's the system or the secret sauce, if you will? And make note of that, because just because your secret sauce, your magical widget, worked once upon a time, it doesn't mean it's going to work this year or next year. You have to keep a pulse on what's going on with your competition so that you're on it, right? So that you are going with the times and not falling short and not being just irrelevant eventually. You don't want to be irrelevant, right? So take note of what the competition is doing. And I'll share some information, what I mean by that. Hey there, my legacy leader. Thank you so much for checking out today's show. We're about halfway done, but I wanted to give you the opportunity to engage further as this episode incites some creativity in you. If you're interested in leaving your own dent in the world, leaving your legacy, I have a very special 3-part video series for you. It's what I call the business trinity. And as solopreneurs, we are looking to create a sustainable business. And what I have found is 3 distinct pillars to make it happen. So I'm sharing that with you, absolutely complimentary. Head on over to businesstrinity.com. Again, businesstrinity.com. Grab that 3-part video series for yourself. It includes some downloadables in there, and you will walk away with clarity on where the opportunities are so that you can leave your legacy. Let's continue with the show. So what offers do they have? What products are they promoting? I mean, do you have a clear indication of who their prospect or their ideal prospect is? Is it very clear so that you can see, right, exactly what it is that they're doing? And I relay this in what I call a competitive matrix. And so take a look at their products. Do they have different offerings at different price points? And I know what's popular is having an ascension ladder. What are their price points? Are they high in the market? Are they seen as that higher end in the marketplace, or just in the middle? In which case, just in the middle, they're just more of the same. The second or the third thing to look at is from a differentiation standpoint, how are they standing out? Are they different? Is it distinct? Are they unique enough in what it is that they do? And how do you know that? So proving their process or their secret sauce, is it very clear to you that they are able to articulate it, and do they stand out? And of course, is it clear who their target audience is? What kind of social proof do they have? I know we've all heard about the power of social proof, really taking a look at those credentials that are very important. This came up as well in a conversation we were having. Is most people talk about their credentials, and I happen to think that credentials are great, but they really are cost of entry, not necessarily a competitive advantage. So you'll be on those sites where people are braggy talking about themselves, where that is not seeing things from the right perspective. You have to make it about your ideal customer. What are they doing? And if you were on that website, right, of somebody else, like, the first thing that'll probably come to mind is like, why do I care about this? I want a solution to my problem as an ideal prospect. So give me the answer, show me the way. Am I interested enough to take a look at what you have to say? So always look at things from the lens of your consumer first, of your client first, of your customer first. Okay. And then with that info, you can really start to play around with headlines and conversations and hooks, etc., and really modify what it is that you're doing to meet that like ethos of what your ideal customer is looking for. So that's what I wanted to say is like, how do you harmonize, right? How do you harmonize everything that you're talking about so that your ideal customer is compelled to take action, whether it's opting in for something, whether it's scheduling a phone call, filling out an application, any of these proof points where they're exchanging their information to want to have that next conversation with you. So should you look at your competitive set, the competitive landscape, competitors in your space? I say absolutely. How often? Just keeping a pulse on this. And what I thought was really great is that I actually had somebody help me with this whole process. You can hire someone, you can hire a virtual assistant. You don't necessarily have to do all the groundwork to this. It is a very powerful process to go through, though, because it really gives you a nice perspective on what you should be considering, what you should be looking at. And even if you have been standing out uniquely in your own, always keep a pulse, because you can never get too complacent, because somebody else is going to come in and expand on that idea that you had once upon a time, and it's just going to be more of the same. It'll create more of the same. And that's what you don't want. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me on this Her Legacy podcast show. I thought I would share this whole thing about the competition because I found that there's a trend that most people don't look for it. So I hope this incited some action in you. Make sure to check out our show notes for this episode number 8. You just go to herlegacypodcast.com, show 8, And then you can grab a download, which includes a matrix sample of the key information that you want to be tracking. All right, cool. So thank you so much for joining. We'll see you on the next one. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Her Legacy Podcast. Make sure to hit the subscribe button if you haven't already done so. That way you won't miss any of the episodes. Also, if you're feeling very generous, please head on over to iTunes. Leave us a rating and review. I love the 5 stars, but more importantly, in the review section, let me know where you're from. What are you doing? What's your business? How are you leaving your legacy? I want to know, leader. So that way I can give you a shout out on my show. So take advantage of that. Would love to hear you so that we're really creating momentum here with what we're doing at Her Legacy Podcast. We'll see you next time. Thank you so much for being here.